Family in DeKalb County is vowing to get justice after someone shot and killed their pregnant loved one and her unborn baby. 11 Live's Ron Jones joins us now with the family's heartbreaking push, Ron, to find the killer.
Yeah, this is a horrible story here. It's a story we had as breaking news on our 11 Alive 24/7 stream. The mother and father of 23-year-old Shakiya Pridgen calls her a loving, sweet, and caring person with a very good heart. Well, the family says that Shakiya was shot and killed early this morning at an apartment complex on Pepper Tree Circle. They said that she was asleep in bed with her 1-year-old son, her 3-year-old daughter when the gunfire broke out, came through the bedroom window shortly before 6 a.m. 2 children were not hurt. However, Shakiya and her unborn child both were killed.
I want the world to know that somebody took a blessing from all of us, and we will get justice. You just don't know how strong this family is together, how much we done lost. This will not be the last time you hear from us. We will get justice for you, Shakiya and Kyron. Kyron is her son's name. He was due to be born next week.
In the early hours of June 16, 2026, silence covered an apartment complex in DeKalb County, Georgia. Families slept. Children dreamed. The world seemed still. Inside one apartment, 23-year-old Shakiya Pridgen lay asleep beside her 2 young children. She was preparing for one of the happiest moments of her life. Just days earlier, she had celebrated a baby shower. Family members said she was expecting a baby boy and was due to give birth at any moment. Before sunrise, gunfire shattered that future. Bullets tore through a bedroom window. Within moments, a young mother was mortally wounded. Her unborn son would not survive. The 2 children sleeping beside her were physically unharmed, but their lives would be changed forever. This is the story of Shakiya Pridgen. A daughter, a mother, a sister, and a woman whose life ended just as she was preparing to welcome a new child into the world. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us continue bringing you detailed documentaries, true crime investigations, and stories that deserve to be remembered. Now let's begin. Every victim of violence is more than a headline. To understand the tragedy of Shakiya Pridgen's death, it is important to understand who she was before the flashing police lights, before the crime scene tape, and before national attention turned toward her story. Family members described Shakiya as loving, caring, and deeply devoted to her children. Those who knew her said motherhood was central to her identity. She was raising 2 young children and eagerly anticipating the arrival of a third. Her father remembered her as a person with a good heart. Relatives spoke of her excitement about the future. She had plans. She had dreams. She had responsibilities that filled her days and hopes that filled her nights. Like many young mothers, much of her energy went toward providing stability and love for her children. In the days before her death, anticipation filled the family's conversations. Preparations for a newborn were underway. Gifts had been gathered. A baby shower had recently celebrated the coming arrival of a baby boy. The family expected to welcome a child. Instead, they would soon be planning a funeral. The attack occurred at the woods at Pepper Tree Apartments in DeKalb County. According to family members and reports from local media, Shakiya was asleep in her bedroom with her children nearby when gunfire erupted. Bullets were fired through the bedroom window, striking her multiple times. There was no warning, no opportunity to escape, no chance to protect herself. Emergency responders rushed to the scene. Paramedics worked to save her life. Doctors attempted life-saving measures after she was transported to a hospital. But the injuries were too severe. Shakiya Pridgen died. Her unborn son died as well. The violence had ended 2 lives in a matter of seconds. For investigators, the shooting immediately raised troubling questions. Who would fire into an occupied apartment? Why target a bedroom? Was the attack random or deliberate? Those questions would become the focus of an expanding homicide investigation. Perhaps the most heartbreaking detail in the case is that Shakiya's young children were reportedly beside her when the shooting occurred. Family members said the children, ages 1 and 3, were not physically injured. But physical injuries are only part of the story. Children exposed to extreme violence often carry invisible wounds. Trauma can persist long after headlines fade. Experts who study childhood trauma note that exposure to violence during early developmental years can affect emotional well-being, relationships, learning, and mental health. For Shakiya's family, concern quickly shifted beyond grief to the future of the children she left behind. Relatives stepped forward to care for them. The family faced not only mourning but also the challenge of rebuilding stability for 2 young lives that had lost their mother in an act of violence. News of the shooting spread rapidly through the local community. Friends, relatives, neighbors, and strangers reacted with shock and disbelief. The circumstances made the tragedy especially difficult to comprehend. A pregnant woman, a mother of 2, days away from giving birth, killed while sleeping. The details resonated far beyond DeKalb County. Social media filled with messages of sympathy. Community members expressed outrage and sorrow. Many focused on the unborn child whose life ended before it began. Others focused on the surviving children who would grow up without their mother. For many observers, the case represented more than a single crime. It reflected broader concerns about gun violence, community safety, and the devastating consequences of violence carried into residential neighborhoods. Questions emerged about how such a shooting could happen. Residents worried about safety. Families wondered whether similar violence could strike their own homes. The tragedy became both intensely personal and broadly symbolic. As homicide detectives processed the crime scene, evidence collection became critical. Investigators examined the apartment. They documented bullet trajectories. They searched for witnesses. They looked for surveillance footage. They attempted to reconstruct the sequence of events leading to the attack. At first, many details remained unknown. Police had not publicly established a motive. Authorities were working to determine whether Shakiya herself had been targeted or whether some other factor had contributed to the shooting. The uncertainty deepened the family's anguish. Without answers, grief often becomes intertwined with frustration. Families want to know not only what happened but why. As investigators continued their work, significant developments emerged. According to Atlanta area reporting, authorities arrested a woman identified as Peyton Kroger. Reports indicated that she faced charges including aggravated assault and shooting into an occupied building. At the time of those reports, the legal process remained in its early stages. An arrest is not a conviction. Charges represent allegations that must be tested through the court system. Prosecutors must present evidence. Defense attorneys must challenge that evidence. A judge or jury must ultimately determine guilt or innocence. Nevertheless, the arrest marked a major step in the investigation. For grieving relatives, it represented movement toward accountability. For investigators, it reflected progress in piecing together what happened that night. For the public, it raised new questions about motive and circumstances. Why had the shooting occurred? What relationship, if any, existed between those involved? What evidence led investigators to their suspect? Those questions would likely become central issues as legal proceedings move forward. Cases involving pregnant victims often provoke particularly strong public reactions. Part of that reaction stems from the sense of compounded loss. When a pregnant woman is killed, multiple futures disappear at once. In Shakiya's case, Family members said she was expecting a son and was only days away from giving birth. There were plans already forming, names being chosen, moments anticipated, first steps, first words, first birthdays, all erased before they could happen. Such cases force communities to confront difficult realities about vulnerability and violence. Home is supposed to be a place of safety. Sleep is supposed to provide refuge. Yet shootings that penetrate homes violate one of society's most basic assumptions, that people should be safe inside their own bedrooms. That reality is part of what made the killing of Shakiya Pridgen so disturbing to many observers. As investigations continue and legal proceedings unfold, families often face a challenge. How do you ensure that a victim is remembered for more than the circumstances of their death? The public learns about crime. Family remembers life. Those perspectives are not always the same. Relatives described Shakiya not as a victim but as a daughter, a mother, a loved one, someone who laughed, cared, struggled, and hoped, someone preparing for a new chapter. The stories shared by loved ones paint a portrait far richer than any police report. A young woman excited about motherhood. A family member deeply connected to those around her. A person whose absence created a void impossible to fill. In the aftermath of violent crime, remembrance becomes an act of resistance against reduction. The goal is not merely to recall how someone died. It is to remember how they live. The criminal justice process is rarely swift. Investigations take time. Court proceedings take time. Evidence must be examined carefully. Witnesses must be interviewed. Legal arguments must be heard. For families, that process can feel painfully slow. Every hearing revives memories. Every development brings renewed attention to loss. Yet the pursuit of justice remains essential. Not because it can erase grief, not because it can restore what was taken, but because accountability matters. The justice system exists to determine facts, establish responsibility, and provide lawful consequences when crimes occur. For Shakiya Pridgen's family, that process continues to hold profound importance. Justice cannot replace a mother, cannot restore a child, but it can provide answers. And sometimes answers become an important part of healing. On paper, the facts seem straightforward. A 23-year-old pregnant woman was shot while sleeping. She died. Her unborn son died. Her children survived. An investigation followed. A suspect was arrested. But documentaries are not about facts alone. They are about people. Behind every statistic is a life. Behind every homicide investigation is a family forever changed. The story of Shakiya Pridgen is ultimately a story about interrupted futures. A mother preparing for a child she would never meet. Children growing up without the person who loved them most. A family forced to navigate unimaginable loss. And a community searching for answers after violence shattered an ordinary night. As the legal process continues, one truth remains clear. The name Shakiya Pridgen represents far more than a crime report. It represents a life that mattered, a family that loved her, and a future that ended far too soon. As this story continues to develop, we'll bring you any significant updates. For more documentary features and real-life stories, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and enable notifications.